Here in the Arizona Republican AZ Central Newsroom, I'm Richard Rellis, here with columnist Bob Robb. We've been through the impeachment trial. The outcome isn't any different than what we expected. Did either party acquit themselves well in this ordeal?
In my judgment, they did not. I describe it as a railroad job by House Democrats, followed by a whitewash by Senate Republicans. I don't think either party acquitted themselves well, although I would say that the Democrats fell much shorter than the Republicans in that respect.
One of your chief points is that the rush to get it done by Christmas, which you say was pure politics, not on any schedule about fact-finding, that they should have waited to have the battles in court to get subpoenas effective.
Well, I believe that the president did abuse his power in asking a foreign government to investigate citizens of the United States who were not under investigation by the U.S. government. The fact that it was a political rival makes it even worse, but even if it was just an ordinary citizen, it would be an abuse of power. The question is the extent to which the president was personally involved in directing that. I believe that there's circumstantial evidence that he was very personally involved. But rather than go through the trouble of subpoenaing and then fighting in court for the testimony of those who directly communicated with the president about the subject, the House Democrats said, "Oh, we don't need that. It's a slam dunk case, and we got to act immediately before Christmas because he's a threat to do it again." Then Nancy Pelosi holds the articles of impeachment for a month, and the Democratic claim changes from "we don't need that testimony" to "it won't be a fair trial in the Senate unless we get that testimony." The contradictions and political posturing by the Democrats, I think, belied any claim that this was an exercise of a solemn constitutional duty as opposed to just trying to inflict punishment and cloud the president's claim as a candidate in 2020.
And I guess that one of the new twists was Bolton's book, Bolton making his assertions public. How did the Senate Republicans handle themselves once it got to their chamber?
They did not take the abuse of power claim seriously enough, in my judgment. Those who were willing to distance themselves from Trump's claim that this was a perfect call and everything that he did was appropriate, took to calling it inappropriate. Well, that just isn't a sufficient description. As I say in the column, inappropriate is George W. Bush giving Angela Merkel a back rub. A president of the United States asking a foreign government to investigate citizens of the United States who aren't under investigation by their own government is an abuse of power. The question is it a sufficient abuse to warrant his removal from office and to ban him from the ballot in 2020?
And you didn't see that vigorous discussion taking place in the Senate?
No, not at all. And my own judgment is that it doesn't rise to that level. But I can see how someone could sincerely conclude otherwise given the circumstances. And that's the discussion that we should have had. Instead, Republicans took advantage of the haphazard way in which Democrats had conducted the impeachment, kind of sort of hung them on their own claim that we don't need any more witnesses, it's a slam dunk case. And until the very end, were largely dismissive of the president's behavior. And even when they decided to be slightly condemning of it, they chose a term, inappropriate, that simply doesn't match the gravity of the abuse.
Well, let's talk about two senators whose votes on the impeachment question had the country waiting to see what they would do, and your thoughts on them both. First, Utah Senator Mitt Romney. How sincere do you think he was in his vote to convict?
I believe the president did abuse his power. My own view would be that it wouldn't rise to the level that he should be dismissed. But it was serious enough, asking a foreign government to investigate citizens of the United States who weren't under investigation by their own government, is a serious enough offense that I believe that one can sincerely conclude differently than me that it does warrant the president's removal. And I believe that Mitt Romney made that decision in sincerity. It would be difficult to fake the emotion that he displayed in explaining the vote, and it was obviously contrary to his political fortunes. And already the Trump forces are under attack against him.
Right, so you're saying it'd be difficult to fake. I think the Trump forces are all but saying it seems like he did use his religion as a crutch, sort of used it as an excuse.
Well, the president criticized both he and Nancy Pelosi for identifying political motivations for what they do. I think it suggests that the president doesn't really understand religious people, even though he has strong support from evangelical Christians. Romney didn't cite his religion to justify his vote. He cited his religion to explain his motivations for his vote.
Another senator that people were watching was Arizona Senator Kyrsten Sinema, who applauded the president during a State of the Union, and then the next day voted to convict on both counts. Your thoughts on her reasoning on those?
I believe that one can sincerely conclude that the president should be convicted on the abuse of power charge. I do not believe that one can sincerely conclude that he deserved to be convicted on the second charge, obstruction of Congress. The House decided not to pursue its subpoenas. It abandoned them. The extent to which Congress can compel witnesses and documents from the executive branch is a legal gray area. Saying a president should be removed from office for articulating and acting on his side of that legal argument, to me shows a lack of respect for the separation of powers. So I would have been inclined to credit Sinema for sincerity, as with Romney, for a vote on the abuse of power charge, if she hadn't also then gone ahead and voted in favor of what I think was a phony charge, the obstruction of Congress charge. Now I'm maybe being excessively harsh, but her explanation for that cited the failure of the president to follow the required consultation with the House. It wasn't that he asserted his legal position, but that he didn't engage in required consultation. There is no such required consultation. That's not part of our constitutional structure. It might be pragmatic, it might be appropriate, but it's not required. And to impeach him on that basis, I think, showed a desire to manage the partisan politics of it rather than a sincere evaluation of the facts of the case.